Jaire Alexander is now a free agent, so I guess we should probably think about that. Maybe. Welcome to Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day every single day. I appreciate you all so very much. Today is Town Hall Tuesday. That means I am answering your questions as submitted to me via the Google form in the show notes. If you have a question or maybe just a hot take, later in the show we are going to read out some of those hot takes, protecting your anonymity, of course. So let her rip. Anything that you are afraid to say attached to your name, I'll take the heat for you. First question in this mailbag comes from Mr. Nylons, who asks, if you were the Vikings, would you consider bringing in Jaire to compete for a spot? Shadow Flame asks, so former first-round pick Jaire Alexander is now available, Viking. Jaire question mark says, so Jaire question mark. Yeah, so everybody wants to know about this, so I guess we'll start here. So Jaire Alexander released from the Green Bay Packers after a lengthy contract battle that ultimately they didn't find a trade partner, they didn't come to an agreement, and they just let him walk. He is pretty cooked, in my opinion. It's always really hard to project these things forward because you could get lucky and suddenly get him in a fully healthy, he's 28 years old and suddenly just get the same Jaire Alexander that he was, during the good times in Green Bay. But this is not a player that's going to carry a ton of value into free agency because every team is going to be asking the same question that came to your head first, which is well, is he going to stay healthy? That will depress his value a ton. Plus just time of year. This is not a good time to be a free agent. Everybody has more or less spent the money they intend to spend. Maybe they got some extensions coming around. If you go to over the cap, some teams will still have a decent amount of cap space, but that's more or less going to be earmarked for something. They've sort of spent whatever they were allowing themselves to spend for free agency, and now that it's either earmarked for extensions, for any outstanding rookie contracts that haven't been signed. I think there are still a couple left over. The Vikings are all done with theirs for what it's worth. Or contingency for the year, or trying to roll it over into next year to help with some cap thing they've got going on next. Every dollar is planned for. So if you're going to walk into a room and be like, $12 million, please, you're kind of asking that team to move some stuff around to make room for you. Is that impossible? Of course not. The Vikings did it with Stephon Gilmore last year, but that's why the former defensive player of the year, Stephon Gilmore, cost the same as Sam Darnold. And I'm going to guess that Jaire Alexander is in something of the same boat. Cost the same as Josh Oliver this year. So it's not, you're not exactly expecting that. So whatever that is, we'll have to see what the numbers are, and if he sends somewhere else, then you can ask, okay, would it have been reasonable for the Vikings to be in on that? But we'll set that all aside for now. The question is Jaire any good? Okay, cool. Press corner, loves to play press, loves to play cover three. I think of him mostly as as at his best in cover three, out on the outside. Take an outside receiver and just have that deep third and have all of that receiver, right? But obviously there's been some quarter stuff in Green Bay. They played a Fangio system like the Vikings had with Ed Donatel for a while, which was a lot of, cover two and squat. And that was helpful for times when Jaire Alexander was not fully healthy. And so he just kind of had to play the flat and, let anything deep go. And so I think skill set wise, I don't think you get to that status of corner without being able to do a couple different things. Flores will figure something out if somebody like that enters the building. And I do still think somebody like that needs to enter the building. I am not comfortable with the cornerback room as it stands. I don't think many people are. I like Byron Murphy a lot. I think Isaiah Rodgers has interesting potential. I see the vision there, but I think just sort of anointing him and Mekhi Blackmon with CB2 and 3, and then maybe like Jeff Okudah is coming. Jeff Okudah has not been a starter for some time. So having him come in and compete, I guess, it's like you need one more really serious player. And I think they're kind of like one short. So bringing in a veteran like that is an idea I'm going to be amicable to no matter who it is, as long as they're not spending $25 million on the guy, and and 2 first round picks. But there are a lot of interesting names out there that I could see it being. I believe Shaq Griffin is still on the market. I believe Stephon Gilmore is still on the market. Jalen Ramsey trade stuff is sort of swirling around. I could see the Vikings being in on that. I think Jaire is absolutely one of these options. So my answer to like, is Jaire a Viking is kind of like, sure, but I'm not very passionate about it. I don't think it needs to be him specifically. I would be kind of bummed if they just walked into the season with this cornerback group and then like played a bunch of palms again because those guys can't man cover and then like died to corner routes. Like I would like to not see that same thing happen again, especially against the Rams and Lions. These McVay style teams that like know how to exploit a mismatch on the outside. I would prefer for that not to happen, to have a little bit more prowess on the outside. I've been crying about this for a long time. And I don't think that the cornerback group this year is like more trustworthy than the cornerback group was last year. One signing maybe can change that. Next question comes from Brandon, who says, Kwesi and Co see that if Kwesi and company see this as a true 2-year window to go and win the Super Bowl, I would argue 3-year window. You have 3 cheap years of McCarthy left, and then the 5th-year option if you want to count it as a 4th. But the 5th-year option is usually a little bit more expensive. Okay, either way, would you rather acquire Ramsey for a late pick or a pick swap and his bigger cap number, or a pissed off Packer in Alexander, which is better for the team? I think Jalen Ramsey is a better player as it stands right now. But again, health is for Jaire Alexander is like a much bigger concern to me. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm honest. Like I know Jalen Ramsey has been hurt a little bit here and there, but I think he's mostly just been sort of on the decline. And I think Jaire is as well. But I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty agnostic to this decision. Bring in somebody, and it's probably someone that isn't as good as they used to be. And that's fine. Okay. Cheap and old. Okay. I get it. Someone more to compete with. So we aren't just like shoving Mekhi Blackmon out there, whether he's ready or not. Cause he was not a perfect corner his rookie year, and he didn't spend a year off training. He spent a year off rehabbing an ACL. Very different things. Dave says there's been a lot of chatter this offseason on if J.J. McCarthy has the all-time best supporting cast for a rookie QB. Regardless on how someone feels on this, it's not fair to compare the surrounding roster to other true rookies. This is a team on its 2nd year of team building with a rookie contract, so it's a bit of an apples and oranges comparison. I think I get where you're at, and I think where you're getting tripped up is the question was, am I splitting hairs too much? No, I don't think I think you're I understand the sort of gripe with the like general discourse. I think where you're getting tripped up is the semantics of whether to consider JJ McCarthy a rookie or not. I don't think it matters too much. He's the quarterback of a team, and we can adjust our expectations on what, like, I expect some rookie-ish mistakes, but I don't have the exact same expectations for him as I do kind of blanketly for like every other, week 1 starting quarterback in a given year, because he's had some time in the whiteboard, right? So if he's like, oh, I didn't know what to do against cover 3 when I'm in that coverage, okay, that's a huge problem because you had time to like ask those questions. But if it's, the throw got away from him, or it's just looking like he's just a little slow about stuff because he doesn't have that practical experience, well, yeah, because this is his first practical experience. But when it comes to, comparing his supporting cast to the supporting cast of other rookie QBs, it's a conversation I don't care much about. Like, I don't care how the Vikings right now compare to like the 2023 Panthers. Like, who cares? This is a totally different situation. And they're not going to play the 2023 Panthers. They're not going to play the Panthers at all unless something very strange happens. But yeah, like, sure, they've had 2 years of Like the last offseason, they did not have much money invested in the QB position. True. And if you want to like apply that to like expectations about roster building, I guess that's fair enough. Chris says, do you think Donovan Jackson could play center if he needed to? Let's say Juergens gets cut after the preseason and Ryan Kelly goes down. Would he make a decent backup? He's never done it before, unless he did it in like high school. I don't know. He's probably learned how to snap at some point throughout his time. Like you just will end up picking that up. But it doesn't sound to me like that's a plan the Vikings are entertaining. It's Juergens, and I doubt that they're going to cut him unless like the undrafted rookie, the NC State kid, can knock him off. That would be what it is. So if it's not Juergens, it's the NC State kid. But I don't think Donovan Jackson is in on this. Could he learn it? Sure. But I don't think that that's a consideration right now. I have a few more questions to get to, and then we have some hot takes. That'll all be next on Locked On Vikings. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is brought to you by Monarch Money. If you've ever looked at your bank account and been like, uh-oh, I did too much. We've all been there, okay? Between online shopping and you don't really see the impact it has and ordering out a whole bunch. Like it all adds up and then suddenly your money's out of control. Monarch Money can help you track all of that. It's your personal CFO. More than just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. You have all kinds of insights on your spending, maybe highlighting areas where you can cut back, but also insights on your investment plans, what's been working for you, and maybe what you can do to build your wealth a little bit better, set goals, track how you're doing against those goals, and even collaborate with a partner if you're somebody with a joint account and you want to make sure you know where the money is going and everything is communicated well so there's no confusion and no hassle. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off of your first year. Continuing on here with the Town Hall Tuesday episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast. The next one comes from Nolan M., who asks, what style of safety is Theo Jackson? Does he have a calling card or is he more of a jack of all trades? Great question. Hard to tell. He's only been in rotational snaps so far. I don't think he's been out there enough to like have an identity as a guy. I would say right now that I consider him more of a pure cover safety, less of a go get in on the run game kind of Josh Metellus type guy. I think of him much more as in the way that I thought of Cam Bynum. And I sort of anticipate that when he's on the field, that's the role that he's going to play. And then you let Josh Metellus rove around the formation and Harrison Smith rove around the formation, right? Those two guys you're doing all kinds of wacky stuff with. Theo Jackson's playing deep third. That's the way I think things are going to happen. But this is going to be a much easier question to answer once we've seen a few games and we know more about the role that Theo Jackson's going to have. Arif, I hope this isn't really Arif, asks, can you compose a 2-minute script for a Vikings version of The West Wing with Sorkin-like dialogue for Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah? No. Mediocrity Enthusiast says, which Viking season that did not result in a playoff appearance was your favorite / the most fun to cover? Similarly, were any seasons more of a drag for you? So I started covering the Vikings, I guess you can count 2016. That's when I was blogging as once a week for a guy's website. But it wasn't professional. It was very much hobby. No money was changing hands. I was just having fun. I started working here at Locked On in 2018, but you can't really count that season. I joined close to the end of it, and I wouldn't pick it as my favorite anyways. It was kind of a drag. So that leaves, if you want to count 2016 as a season, also kind of a drag to me. It was a very frustrating season with a lot of like discourse to it. Cause it was another, like, it was like, ooh, they're frauds kind of season. Like we've heard these tropes a lot every time the Vikings are good. So I think that leaves like 2020, which was probably my answer to this. That was a blast of a stupid season. They start 1-5. They go win in Lambeau. They win these crazy games against like Carolina and Jacksonville. If you want just an absolute like microwave your brain kind of just like eyeballs turn inside out nonsense watch, if you can find the condensed game or even the full highlights of Vikings Jaguars 2020. That game was insane. That game had 2 missed extra points made up for by a safety, and it was like the 8th weirdest thing that happened. Just go watch that one. And like so many games were like, it was the most brain dead year ever. It was very fun. Frustrating at the end, but you have all these funny moments like the Alvin Kamara 6 touchdown, Christmas nightmare debacle. You've got this weird energy because it's COVID. And if you go back and watch that and then listen to like the pumped in crowd noise that we all got used to, it's so weird. But there's something fun about how weird it was. 2021, I think on field, a lot of the same stuff, a lot of really weird, wacky, run around crazy Kirk chaos meter games. I invented the chaos meter in 2020, by the way. In a COVID-19 haze. We were all locked in lockdown. We all couldn't go outside for months, and we were all getting a little bit weird. And then 2021 was about the same, but it was annoying because then there was like the vaccine rules controversy, and basically any criticism you had of anybody on the Vikings, Kirk Cousins in particular, but kind of anybody, it would always get met with like, oh, you don't actually mean that. It's just because you like disagree with his policies. Like, no, he threw a bad interception. But and so everything had to like get through that layer before you could actually talk ball. So that one was kind of a bummer. 2023 Dobbs sanity, probably my favorite like pure moment, but 2020 was a much more fun season. 2023 was a pretty frustrating season because of all the turnovers. Sketch Conk asks, how hard do you think it is to fix the Felton jumping the pads thing versus other issues? Is there any other wide receivers that have had this issue coming out that you remember? Second question first. The guys that I can think of coming out. So I didn't learn about this until like 2 years ago. And I learned about this looking at Quentin Johnston. So oops. He didn't I don't think he's overcome it yet. But how easy, you're gonna have to ask a wide receiver coach. I've never taught it. I don't know I don't know how hard that is to teach. It's a habit. It's a technique thing. I imagine it is. The problem is there's like a lot of things with Ty Felton to fix. I don't know if that one's gonna be the priority, and so it might still kind of be with him for these like crucial formative years. And they mix with a certain kind of like athletic deficiencies, like not being that big, not being that agile, that are gonna kind of they do a lot to make you care less about the 40 time, I guess. Mike Tice's other secret playbook says, interesting one. I don't, is that a reference? Anyways, it says, congratulations on your promotion to GM of the Vikings all clone football team. Pick one and only one current player on the current roster and assemble a team of 53 of that cloned player. Assume that you have a Camino-like facility at your disposal. That was where they made the clones in Star Wars, the one with the like the big ocean and the rain, so that you can train them from a young age for the position of your choice. Who do you pick? My immediate thought, if we get current Vikings, my immediate thought is Harrison Smith. Since I can clone them infinitely, I never have to worry about the age of Harrison Smith, and then I just get the athlete Harrison Smith over and over and over. Seems pretty good, but I'm also just kind of thinking like, it's not Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's the best player on the team, but he didn't like, he was a late bloomer. He didn't like really come of age athletically until like his sophomore year of college. And so for some positions, I kind of don't want that. So genetically, I'm not taking Justin Jefferson, even though he's the best player on the team. I'm trying to think of, the spiciest, like true blue athlete. And since I can just clone that athlete and then ostensibly train them and turn them into the best player possible, this would be where what it used to be so easy to just be like, Danielle Hunter, move on. But I think I'm probably going to have to go with like a good all-around athlete, but not a specific kind of athlete, right? Like I can't just go look at the best 40 times. So I looked at some RAS scores, and a lot of the best RAS scores of the last few years are no longer on the team, but Van Ginkel is. Van Ginkel's an interesting idea here. Justin Jefferson did have a good RAS, but like, again, late bloomer that is going to affect training. Brian O'Neill's a good one, but like I think he had great athletic testing, but like you can't take a Brian O'Neill player and be like, okay, you're the cornerback now, you know? Van Ginkel, I think you can maybe try to do that a little easier. So I'll go with Van Ginkel, but I'm not feeling excellent about it. Eric Wilson's also a very interesting idea here. Elsewhere in GM Luke Braun asks, Scold Outside asks, it's the 2024 draft. You time hopped into Kwesi's body, quantum leap style at pick 11, but the Broncos just jumped us and took JJ McCarthy at 10. You have full knowledge of how the 2024 season and draft went. Who are you picking at 11 and 23? You probably slam Bo Nix at 11, right? And then sit and wait and grab Jared Verse if you can. That's probably it. I think the idea of taking Dallas Turner over Jared Verse is still semi-justifiable because of just style. Like Jared Verse doesn't cover, Dallas Turner does, and Brian Flores is going to want that. So I could still see like running that decision back. Maybe don't trade up for it this time. And if he does fall, you just go get like a corner, right? Get Quinyon Mitchell or something like that. That clearly, oh no, it's totally Quinyon Mitchell. What am I talking about? I just complained so much about cornerback. Yeah, you take Bo Nix and you say, yeah, he did good enough. We can make it work. And, you don't feel great about it. Like I still would, if I were a Broncos fan, I'd be like, okay, encouraging rookie year, but you still want to see him build a little more consistency. They're a little bit too much bozo, a little like some games where the offense sort of sputtered into dust to take that next step, you know, but you got more encouragement than I think anybody thought you were going to. So I would feel reasonable about that and because he's the only even remotely serious QB left on the board, we need somebody. And then at pick 23, you probably just sit and wait and grab whatever corner you want. Quinyon Mitchell's probably a pretty easy one. Hot takes coming up next. Hot, spicy, fresh out the oven on Locked On Vikings. Moving right along here on the Locked On Vikings podcast. It's time for some spicy hot takes. The first one comes from a procrastinating grad student. Need I keep scolding you? Grad student, please just do your grad student work, okay? Graduate, and then you can ask all the questions you want. They say there is no need to sign Jaire because the Vikings already have their CB3 of the future, Jeff Okudah. I understand the fact that he's not been good at all, but I trust Flo to bring out the best in his guys. That's probably a lot. Look, I think we need to temper that take. I get it, right? We're doing the same thing with Keenan McCardell and like Ty Felton or Tim Jones or whatever. Oh, well, Keenan McCardell liked him. He's done. We're happy with the job that Keenan McCardell has done in developing guys like Jalen Naylor, right? Or in getting the most out of guys like Jordan Addison or Justin Jefferson even. We get it, right? Very happy with that. But that doesn't mean that you can just go take any jabroni, throw him to the good coach and make it work. This was the Andre Patterson lesson, right? Very happy with him about Danielle Hunter. Basically, everybody that came to Minnesota under his tutelage did better than they ever did elsewhere, right? Like Fadio Denebo has never been anything close to anything, but he was like kind of almost a starter here. But that doesn't mean you can just toss him a Scott Crichton and be like, this is going to work. He's maybe going to get more than anyone else could get, but you can't look at that and be like, yeah, Jeff Okudah is going to just work here in the Brian Flores defense. They would hide him, I think. They would call a bunch of cover 2 or 2 to his side, or rotate him out a lot, or like they would find, back him off into half safety coverage where he just needs to stay on top of everything and break on routes. You don't really need to be good at corner. Like, I'm sorry, man. We've seen enough Okudah in this league to know that like it's probably not happening for him. But listen to the Everyman series if you want hopium. Red Homer Hanky says the beer in Wisconsin is homogeneous and overrated at best. The volume they drink masks how ordinary the quality is. I'm sorry, I should have read the parenthetical. The volume they drink, parentheses, in order to tolerate living in God's blind spot, masks how ordinary the quality of it is. I can't weigh in on this, but I do wholeheartedly support anything that hates on Wisconsin. So, Cook. I stole your cane, Bill. That's not very nice. Give it back. says the solution to the kickoff/touchback issue is to line up both kickers at the 50-yard line and let them beat the piss out of each other for 90 seconds or so. Hey, you're not too far off from the XFL move where they would like do a scramble for the ball and a bunch of people got hurt. This one came in like right after the last one. I'm just going to reiterate my point. Simply do it the way Sam Schwartzstein drew it up in the original XFL, which the Vikings or the NFL is inching closer to. Mike Tice's other secret playbook. Again, I like that he spelled Mike Tyce this time. I like that. Mix it up. Says Dan Campbell's a hell of a locker room guy, but a terrible X's and O's guy who delegated a ton of planning decisions to his now gone coordinators. Without the Johnson and Glenn brain trust, Detroit will be a sub 500 team and finish dead last in the division. A spicy prediction for sure. Something you can find at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Probably at some 4-digit, number plus some thousand. You know who else was a really good locker room guy, but like not an X's and O's guy at all? Bud Grant. By his own admission, read his book. I have it behind me somewhere. He talks all the time in this about how much the distaste he had for the tactics, the X's and O's and stuff. And he really did want to be a leader of men. He let Jerry Burns do all the X's and O's for him. I think that can be perfectly sustainable. I think some of the best coaches in NFL history have been that, this guy included. So while I think you might be right about Dan Campbell, I don't think I agree with you with like how bad a thing that is. Skolmaha says, this feels like one no one wants to say. This one, this is going to get you in trouble, Skolmaha. Says Josh Metellus is wildly overrated, and there's no need to break the bank to re-sign him. He is praised and lauded for his versatility and ability to play positionless football, but really the reason he has to is because he's a jack of all trades and master of none. I'm not going to kill you for this one. So I get it, right? The jack of all trades, master of none thing is a criticism, but it's not the worst criticism. Like, there is still a lot of value to that, right? How you value that monetarily, we can quibble over the numbers. I don't know if he's going to break the bank. He's going to get more money, but I don't think he's going to be getting $26 million a year or anything crazy like that. That would be fairly surprising to me, and we can sort of compare whatever he does sign to historical safety contracts of old, and we can see where he lines up, right? Which we do every contract, and we'll do that whenever he signs his. What I will say is his actual, like how comfortable I am with Josh Metellus at various positions does vary. Josh Metellus at nickel corner, love it. Josh Metellus at safety, love it. As an overhang defender, blitzing off the edge, love it. As a weak side linebacker, I'm okay with it if he rotates there a little bit as part of a grander plan, but as an every down player, didn't love it. Sometimes the lack of oomph got exposed. I mean, he's small for that position. He's a safety playing linebacker. And so being a smaller player got exposed, put him at outside corner playing man coverage. Okay, well, why are we doing this, right? Like, you can put him everywhere, but you would prefer not to. But the fact that you have the option is like only good. So I think there's probably a middle ground between, hey, he's going to be the third highest paid player on the Vikings or something like that, and what he's making right now, which is a pittance. There's probably a nice middle ground that's like the ideal value, and we can all decide for ourselves what that number is and then how it stacks up to the contract he eventually signs. Alan Page is perfectly pointy and possibly perpendicular. Pinky says Andrew Van Ginkel is overrated. We got a theme today. I love Gink so much, and he's very good, but his plural amount of pick sixes last year have led to a national narrative that he's a better player than he actually is. He should be regarded very highly, and that's a good thing because he's a good player, but those pick sixes likely played a huge part in him getting second-team All-Pro over Grenard, who is simply the better player. Grenard is a better player than Van Ginkel. 1,000,000%, yes. We actually talked about that yesterday with JJ and his like system of force winners versus technical winners. Really interesting way to think about the position, and contrasting Grenard and Van Ginkel using that tool really like tells an interesting story. So go listen to that. I'll kind of defer to that for this one, but I do agree that like, a couple of big high profile moments is going to dominate your narrative. I've complained about this quite a bit with someone like Caleb Williams. And so, yeah, it would be unfair if I didn't acknowledge that the same thing is definitely happening with Van Ginkel. He will get stopped up sometimes. I think he is like a second-tier edge rusher. Super cool that he made the Pro Bowler, and a good starting edge rusher, the kind of guy that's frustrating if you're a rookie stuck behind him. But yeah, I think like the all pro, he's the greatest guy. It's probably going to regress this year. Probably not getting 2 pick sixes this year. That's a lot to ask. Lastly, I don't follow the news. Lucky you. Says, one thing I know for sure is that judging by his appearance, we don't need to worry about Jordan Addison getting in trouble. It looks like he's way too busy with his chess club to do anything dumb. I have no idea what you're talking about. Was there like a chess social media thing going on? If Jordan Addison is an avid chess player, I hereby challenge Jordan Addison to a game of chess. I don't know if I'll win or not, but it's out there. And if he doesn't respond, he's a coward. I will see you all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.